mom was active part of NIMSA, and we spent a lot of time up here with my sisters. So for anybody who remembers my mom, Tia Ibrahim, inshallah, make a dua for her. She passed away a couple of years ago. So I am tasked with talking about the body. And that can be a very wide range of things. And like Sister Selma, I want to say that we're going to repeat a couple of things. Because I was going to do like a meditation kind of thing like you did, but I won't make y'all meditate again. But I'm going to do that. So I want to remind you of one of the things that I think that is the overall encompassing philosophy of everything that I do. And that is that physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is intertwined. The weakness of one weakens them all, and the strengthening of one strengthens them all. So whether you take something away from Sister Selma, take something away from me, or you take something away from the next speaker, it will strengthen every single part of those interactive parts of our body. So physical, mental, and spiritual. The important thing for me is that people move, because I think of all of the things that we do and that we encourage one another to do, particularly in the Muslim community, movement is not one of those things that is very common, that is, created as a part of our overall wellness. So it's really important for me, for people to understand how important movement is. So I'm going to grab my phone because I have a few notes. I'll be honest, I came up with like this speech that I thought was really, really good. And then I just woke up this morning and I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about something different. It's not as polished as the previous speech. However, so what I titled my speech is 50 Shades of Grey Matter. I've never seen 50 Shades of Grey. I do not recommend to see 50 Shades of Grey. From my understanding, it's like soft porn, so we do not want to recommend that. If you saw it, keep it to yourself. I don't want to know. But the reason why I named it that is because, and I'm going to come back to this a couple of times during the lecture, gray matter. Gray matter is actually a part of our brain. And it's one of the most important parts of our brain. Our gray matter is responsible for some of the most significant activities that happens in the brain. It's full of all of our cells. It's responsible for memory. It's responsible for muscle movement. It's responsible for our emotional health and our emotional reactions. Many different diseases, we see the effect directly inside of our gray matter. So, for example, Alzheimer's patients actually have a shrinkage of gray matter. People with ADHD, they have a shrinkage of gray matter. Depression is something that they have linked directly to the amount of gray matter in the brain. And the way that we can actually prevent and help treat some of these illnesses is through increasing the gray matter. So that's a whole new budding area of research. Is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the increase in the gray matter in the brain, something that decreases as we get older. Well, my interest in neuroplasticity, of course, is how do we get it to be better? So I'm going to say this, and I always say this with an explanation. I'm going to start off by saying I am not saying that fat people are dumb, okay? So, but I'm going to tell you a fact. When we gain weight, as we get bigger, our brain literally shrinks. This is scientific part of neuroplasticity. So I'm not saying that skinny people are smarter than fat people, or because fat people have smaller brains. Think of it as a very personal potential. That when we can manage our weight, that we actually increase our mental capacity on a personal level. It is not person to person, and this person's brain is bigger than that person. It is on a very personal level. So when I found this out, I was like, oh crap, I need to lose 10 pounds. My first reaction. However, it took me a minute to find, I'm like, okay, well, if my brain has shrunk because I've gained 10 pounds, my gray matter is smaller, how do I
actually increase it. Like, can you go back? And so we discover neuroplasticity. Physical exercise actually increases the gray matter in your brain.
Just like your muscle.
Sort of like your muscle. You have to increase the muscle, specifically resistance training. So it's not just about, okay, I'm going to get out and I'm going to take a stroll every day, or I think I'm going to run a marathon. You don't even have to do anything like that. Just doing resistance training meaning push-ups, squats, burpees, my favorite, lifting weights. It physically increases the size of your brain. When you increase your gray matter, you actually increase the way that you're able to handle stress, as Sister Selma was talking about. You actually increase your memory. It improves your short-term memory. So here's an awesome study, particularly if you have kids, and kids who are having problems concentrating in school or have ADHD. So there's this great book. I love it. I tell people about it all the time. It's called Spark. It's based on research studies. It's called Spark, the Evolutionary Revolution of Science in the Brain. And what they did in Spark in working with kids is they did a study inside of the suburbs of Chicago, inside of a high school. And they had high school students to voluntarily participate in this study. And they came in an hour before school and they did vigorous physical activity. And they wanted to see how is that going to affect their grades. Reading scores went up by 30% from doing exercises. And they wasn't like pushing up reading a book. They just was putting it up. Reading scores went up by 30%. So they said, okay, let's see where else we can get physical activity to actually improve kids' performance. They took it to a school of children who had behavior problems. Suspension rates went down. Somebody give me a number. What do you think suspension rates go down by?
60%.
Nope. Nope. 80%.
Wow.
By having kids engage in physical activity, it actually improved their ability for self-control, their ability to handle stress. And stress is something everybody is going to have. Really interesting reading an article by Dr. Andrew Weil. Dr. Andrew Weil, he is he's both a naturopath and a medical doctor. He was actually one of the first people in the medical field to get both degrees. And the interesting thing is he talked about a colleague who became a doctor, and he said so she decided that she wanted to really help the people that were the poorest and needed it the most, and she wanted to solve exotic illnesses, and so she found some remote village in Africa and joined Doctors Without Borders, and she went to this remote village and she expected to see all of these illnesses and give them medicine that was going to cure them that they never had, and she was handing out antidepressant medicine. And what they came, the conclusion that they talked about was everybody has stress. A baby is stressed when they're hungry and they're starting to cry. That's stress. So we cannot eliminate stress. We can learn how to manage it, and we can learn how to reduce it. And so one of those ways that we can do that is by exercise. Another one which I have recently become very fascinated with is mindfulness. Mindfulness is really, really interesting because it's fairly new. When I say new, probably some of the very first studies that's released on it was like 2011. So we're talking like within the last 5 years. So you may have heard a lot about mindful meditation. So what mindfulness is actually not just being conscious in the present, but being intentionally conscious in the present. So I'm not going to take you through an entire meditative consciousness, but I want you to just feel about where your body is. So this isn't about going someplace else, which is another way of doing it. This is about being in the present right now. So I want you to just pay attention to your feet. Don't change the position that they're in. Just pay attention. Bring your mind there. What do they feel like? Are they cold? Are they warm? Are they still? Is your feet falling asleep? Kind of what does your feet feel like? What position are they in? Are they apart? Are they crossed? Are your toes playing footsies? So not a good, not a bad, just really being conscious of where they are in space. Are your legs crossed? Do you have one hanging, one touching the floor? So being conscious of what is happening in the present, not judging it as good or bad. Do you have one foot that you like better than the other? It might be possible. I have a favorite foot now because I have one that's healing from a ligament tear, so I have a favorite foot. So being conscious of where you are. So some of the new research about mindfulness, I think is not just fascinating, but as a Muslim, it's even more fascinating to me because it talks about how mindfulness, just bringing yourself in the present, is actually another way of increasing gray matter. People who practice mindfulness in an 8-week study, at the end of the 8 weeks, the MRI scans show a physical difference in the amount of gray matter that they have. They were able to measure it. That's significant. Decreased blood pressure. Increased feeling of hopefulness. Decreased depression. Decreased pain. So not that you should ignore the pain, but be conscious of the pain. Don't think of it as a good thing or a bad thing, because our perception is what can actually change our experience. So this is how we tie this to Islam, and I always found this very fascinating. I was born and raised Muslim, but as we know, no one knows everything about Islam. But if you've been Muslim for a long time or you were born Muslim, you learn things along the way, and you're like, yeah, you're okay. And then later on, you find something else about it, and it just clicks. And it just gets a deeper meaning. So when I started reading stuff about mindfulness and how important it is and all of the benefits that it can have, of course, the first thing that I related it to was salah. I was like, we already have this in Islam. Like, this is not something new. Like, 2011, oh, look, you should be conscious of your body. You should meditate. We do this. And the way that we do this, or the way that we should do this, is so close. I mean, they hit it on the head in mindfulness, what Rasulullah ﷺ did 1,500 years ago. One particular hadith, there is a hadith where Abu Musa, he said that when Rasulullah ﷺ, when he prayed, that he would stay in ruku and sujood until all the bones have settled. So think about that one night. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know, staying there until the bones have settled is not just about, I'm making ruku for a long time. You have to be conscious of your body to know when your bones have settled. That mindfulness that you're talking about that makes it so great, and you become more conscious of your body, and you increase your gray matter and your ability to think and your ability to handle stress. We are commanded to do it 5 times a day. Can you just imagine the difference in your life if when you just made ruku, we stayed there until the bones have settled? That means that when you bow, you have to say, where is my feet? Where are my hips? Is my back straight like Rasulullah ﷺ? If somebody put water on it the way that Abu Bakr described, would it stay in that position? Am I rounded? Am I sunk in? That takes time to do. So this quick, that's not how we pray. I think that it just, everything came together for me. And I'm like, this is what Islam is about. It's not this, we are not a metaphorical religion. Islam is a very physical religion. Our 5 pillars, 4 out of the 5s are physical actions. You cannot deny Islam being a physical religion because Salah is a physical action. To give zakah is a physical action. To make hajj is a physical action. To fast in Ramadan, it is a physical action. We are commanded to care for our bodies. They are alone from Allah. Because you cannot serve Allah if the tool He gave you to serve Allah does not work. It's like being a mechanic and you have a rusty wrench. Can you do it? Somebody asks you to fix a car? If you're a really good mechanic, you probably could. It would take you longer. It would be harder. It probably wouldn't be done as well. And our bodies is the same way. You can pray sitting down if you needed to. But if you have to sit down and pray, it's probably a little difficult for you to actually make wudu in a quick fashion. It's probably difficult for you to do other things that are a part of ibadah. So when you take care of your body, then you can do all of those things much more efficiently. You can do them with much greater ease. And the quantity that you can do is much better. You can do it a whole lot better. So there's another hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that with all other things equal, the strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. There's different interpretations from different scholars as to what this means, but one of those interpretations is talking about physical strength. And why would the strong believer be much more beloved to Allah than the weak believer? Because when you have physical strength, you can do more. You can physically do more. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was not a weak man. When he told them to build the masjid in Medina, he physically went and began to pick the stones up himself to help build it. He didn't sit around like a plump pious sheikh and say, I'm going to put that stone in there. He physically got up and do it. You cannot fight jihad without physical strength. You cannot fast in Ramadan and do for the masjid without physical strength. So when you don't have physical strength, you just can do a lot less. Because Islam is not just about sitting around and dhikring and reading Quran. You have very physical things that you have to do. We have an obligation not just to ourselves, but to our community. In order to do that, Islam is a communal religion. You have to have physical strength. When your sister calls you in need, you have to be able to physically get up to help them. That requires us caring for our body. If your sister falls down, you can't pick her up. If you physically cannot do it, it's less that you have to do. So important that for us as Muslims in particular, that we're always conscious that exercising is not just about fitting into a size 2 pants. Size does not matter. In every study that they've ever done about people who are naturally thin, who are sedentary, and people who are naturally, quote unquote, hefty or bigger, however you want to call it, who are active in moving, the people who are active in moving and who are overweight are more healthy than people who are thin and they sit down. It's about movement. It's not about size all of the time. It's about being able to physically move efficiently. So, on that note, of course I got to get you up to physically move. I need everybody to stand up. Well, I can't do boot camp because people got on dresses, and I wore pants at least so that I can get you to move and break and get some space. Get some space. Come up. You might want to come over here with the camera. Yes. You want to go? Oh, they have when we talk about that you need to de-stress yourself and physical activity, when you get the blood flowing actually takes it not just through your body, but up into your brain, up into that frontal cortex, this is what someone talked about, so that you can release and you can actually get your thoughts going and quickly and efficiently and be able to think straight. So keep doing a little bit more. Give me about 5 more, 4 more, 3 more, 2 more, 1 more. We're going to loosen it up, but you're going to just like literally kick your butt. You're trying to get that heel to literally touch your butt. All right? Good for the front of the legs. And all. Get it moving just a little bit. I'm going to take more. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, bring it back together. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into a squat. So I'm just going to show you 3 exercises. 2 things I want you to remember about a squat. When you squat, you need to push your butt back so that your knees stay behind your toes. Go down just as far as you're able to. If you have a baby, you can just hold her or him across your chest. And you have a little extra weight. I used to do that when my kids were small. And you're going to just squat down and bring it back up. Keep your abs sucked in nice and tight, like you have on a pair of tight jeans and you're trying to hold your abs in, because that is going to actually get you to have better form. You got it. Back on your heels. Don't come up on your toes when you squat. Give me 10 more. 10. The squats are really good. One is the most functional exercise that we can do, because we squat every day. Every time you get in your car, you're squatting. Every time you go to the bathroom, you're squatting. Every time you sit down in a chair. And it just makes all of that done much more efficiently. If you have knee problems, squats is a great one that you can continue to do to help strengthen your knees. Give me 3 more. I'm not going to get what count that is. Train it out. Victoria's be back after. So, one more. Forget that. Good. There you go. Shake your legs out for me. So we're going to take that and we're going to bring it into a side lunge, because that's probably easier for people with good form instead of going to a front lunge. So when you do a side lunge, you're going to step out as wide as you can. You're going to take your left hand or whatever the opposite hand is and try to touch your foot. Bring it back together. Take the opposite hand, touch your other foot. Here. Bring it back together. Now, side lunges are awesome because it works the legs in a whole different direction. Most people can do them pretty well. Big step over and touch. Baby here. Big step over and touch. You got to get the skirt. Okay. Give me 5 more. Just 5 more. 5, 4, 3. Give me a 2. And give me 1 more. 1 more. All right. Awesome. All right. This will make me probably make this more than reach up. All right. Got it. Awesome. All right. Shake your legs out. Shake your legs out. So I'm going to incorporate 2 things. My little stress reduction technique. I use physical movement to reduce stress. I need you to remember 1, 2, and 3. Right? So your big 1 is you're going to take a big 1 up. You're going to come down with 2 breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And 3, you're just going to shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out. There you go. 4 to 3. All right? Now, if you're stressed and you do that, there's no way you can continue to be stressed. Your kids may be like, Mom, are you okay? Let's go again. Big 1 up. Come down with 2 breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Bring it down. And you're going to look 3 and shake it out. There you go. 1, 2, and 3. All right, that is your stress reduction technique. You guys ever see it? We are sweating. We leave, we got like that smoke coming from the bars, we got all this sweat. We're like, oh, they do it in that mosque. Awesome. So part of doing physical activity is very much reducing your stress level. Because stress level tends to increase not just when you're going through a stressful situation, but the way that you interpret a stressful situation. So the interesting thing is, when they do research on putting people in very stressful situations and didn't give them any kind of cues on how to interpret that stressful situation. So they asked them a series of questions, gave them very negative response from the people who was asking the questions. Stress level, we got that fight or flight response. So the eyes begin to dilate, your heart rate increases, your lungs begin to move really fast, trying to get more air into your body. All of these things were indication of stressors and negative stressors, because that fight or flight can save your life. But even if we were walking through the rainforest and we saw a tiger, I was in this bear, and we saw a tiger, if you lived in the rainforest, you're not going to see that tiger every day. It is an emergency mechanism to save your life. But if you're in an abusive relationship and that tiger comes home every night, then that fight or flight response goes from a life-saving technique to a life-threatening technique. Because our body is not meant to be in flight or fight all the time. Even if you're not in an abusive relationship and you're just a worrywart, again, you're activating that fight or flight mechanism every single day for every single thing. And your body begins to react in a way that it is now taking it from a life-saving to a life-threatening, because cortisol is constantly being released. The hormones that are released during fight or flight, or during, let's just call it distress, when we're in a stressful situation, we hear a lot about cortisol. Everybody knows that cortisol is the bad hormone. It causes you to have belly fat. It releases when you're under a stressful situation. But another hormone that is released during a stressful situation is actually called oxytocin. And oxytocin is a really interesting one because it is released in stress, but it's also released when you have physical interaction with people. So here's the really fascinating thing about oxytocin. It is what we call the hug hormone, right? And so I'm going to talk to you about something called skin hunger. And I really like talking to Muslim women about skin hunger because I think it's something, it was another one of those things, they were just a light bulb one day for me. I think it's something that we as Muslim women are not conscious of, and we should be conscious of, and we get less of it unintentionally because we cover up all the time. So if you're on social media at all, you've probably seen all of these heartwarming videos that's actually really miraculous about that shows small babies who are born. I saw one where the baby was literally stillborn. According to the doctors, had no heart rate or anything like that. But the mother held the baby against her chest. And after several minutes of hugging the baby and talking to the baby actually came back to life. The effect of having physical skin contact makes a huge impact in people's lives. As human beings, we are meant to physically touch other human beings. As Muslim women, especially if you're a hijabi and you're like me, I'm going home for a couple of hours, I'm going to make dinner, but I got to go back out to a meeting, so I'm not taking all of this off and come back on. So I'm like in my hijab all the time, right? Until my husband comes home and he's like, hey, we're married. Take that off, you know? But I found when I started being conscious of it, my kid comes home, they're talking to me, you did a great job, give them a hug, but I am completely covered. I found that when I became conscious of it, I realized that besides my husband, I do not make physical skin contact with my kids. And I thought that for me, it was actually more important to my kids, because they don't have husbands and wives, right? if I don't want them touching other people. We got to figure a way to get rid of some skin hunger. So one of the things that is really interesting about Oxycontin and how it's released during stress is that it's released during stress, and what it does is that it urges you to make social connection. So when you're stressed, your body actually releases a hormone that says, tell somebody, get some help. And when you don't, you're actually not responding to the physical reaction that's natural, that's a part of our filter that says, talk to somebody, find a friend, find a family, find a loved one. This is something that we need as human beings. It's actually built in our system. The way that this is also released, which is really, really interesting, is literally your arms are out, so I'm going to touch you. Rubbing the arm. That one thing is what they did in the study. A careful, meaning full of care, caress by a friend or a loved one actually releases the feel-good hormones. In the same part of the brain, now check this out. Of course, as a fitness trainer, I absolutely love this. The same part of the brain that activates when you eat sweets activates when somebody rubs your arm. How's that for a diet tip? Awesome. It can. It feels good as chocolate. Hey, no excuses. I gotta have my chocolate. Just be like, look, while I'm in the store, your 6-year-old would think you're crazy. Mommy's going to the store. When I get to the cash register, I need you to just rub my arm. I just rub my arm. Mommy, just don't go ask questions. Just rub my arm.
Does it work if you do it to yourself?
Does it work? That's a good question. I'm going to have to say that. I actually don't know. You have to try it. The research study that I read was with someone else rubbing your arm. So that is actually really good. I would think that maybe it would.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes to a certain extent. And if you just try, even if you touch yourself gently, it feels good. Right? You don't have the interactive element, but it's still, which is why giving yourself a hug actually is useful, helpful.
Yeah, one of my techniques accidental, so thank you for giving some, literature to it. When I'm in stress mode or I'm in a meeting and the men are like saying, I just, curl my fingers. It brings down my stress level. So that's my technique, so I think it does.
So that's yeah.
My 2-year-old, when she gets upset, she rubs my arm.
Really?
Yeah, I never realized why, but I know that's something that she likes. She sucks her thumb and rubs my arm right here.
There you go. See, she knew it. She knew it. She's like, we're coming, both of us down. This is stressful for both of us. There you go. There you go. So that's really, skin hunger is something that you should even out that you should really, particularly I think this is really important, particularly for kids. And even though I have teenagers, I really try to do the same thing for them. My kids are older now. Unfortunately, I didn't know all of this stuff when they were little teeny babies. But now that they're teenagers, it's still very important that we actually make physical contact. So if you're not married and you have a kid, make sure that you are making physical contact with that kid, giving them a hug. So I tell people, when you go home, put on a t-shirt. At least when you hug your kid, you make physical contact, right? When you have a girlfriend and you guys are chatting, there's nothing wrong with, I used to feel really uncomfortable with people who were very physical. Really, it's not that funny. But now I do it as a public service. You really need to laugh and hug me. Okay, we can laugh and hug because I wouldn't release some oxycontin and it gives them endorphins, right? So now it's a public service. But make sure that you are making a connection. Another thing, so I'm going to talk about this one more thing. How much longer?
You got 15.
Okay, awesome. So I want to take that into talking about how important it is for, and again, this is one of the hikmas of Islam, one of the reason why we are a communal religion, that we come together for prayer, we come together during the month of Ramadan for iftar, is that you can't live Islam by yourself. And Rasulullah, he said that it is better for you to live in a city and be annoyed by the people than to live in isolation. This is a part of the deen. And the hikmah to that. So there is another say. I mean, I'm not a researcher, but I'm like a research enthusiast. I like research because I'm one of those people where I think like it can be explained by science. And I think that life is more than just about common sense. I think the beautiful thing about being Muslim is I have very rarely come across a really sound research study that actually contradicts what we're taught in Islam, and it's always very supportive, particularly about health and wellness. Always just reiterates what Islam always teaches. So the importance of being friends, coming together as a community. And this is such a wonderful time because we're getting ready to enter into Ramadan. And we come together a lot during Ramadan. But and I have to say this to myself first, is we have to continue that throughout the year. So in Ramadan this year, inshallah, we can make an intention that next year, between the two Ramadans, if Allah bless me to see that time, then I'm going to have somebody over my house once a month. Because there's a study. It's called the Blue Zone. It's called the Blue Zone study. And what this researcher did is that he literally traveled the entire world to search for populations whose average age is over 100. What are these populations doing where it is very common for people to live to be 108, 110, 102? Like, this is not like some, oh, wow, did you hear about this person that's 100? You know, here it makes the news. Oh, my God, somebody hit 100. But here it's really, really common. So he found there's actually a place in the United States. There's actually a Seventh-day Adventist community. I believe it's like in Virginia somewhere, where actually the people who have been living in this community for a very long time, they actually are averaging over 100. There is a village in China. There is a village in Africa. There's a village in Sicily. And so first the thing that they did was they looked at, of course, how are people eating? You know, diet is a big thing. People in Sicily eat lots of carbs, and that seemed not to be a problem. People in Africa was like a meat-based diet. Oh, that seemed not to be a problem. So they actually could not connect diet to living to be over 100. So then they looked at lifestyles. Everybody's lifestyle was very, very different. Chinese people walked everywhere. They were very, very active. Other people just varied on the scale. So they said, okay, it's actually not physical activity. The thing that they connected that was the same in all of these places where people lived over 100, they all had lifelong friendships. All had lifelong friendships. In this village in China, they actually have a name for it, which escapes me at the moment. They have a name for friends that they said that in general, there is groups of 3 or 4. You make friends in kindergarten, and these women were 102, and they were still friends. That is powerful. So if you know a sister, a friend, a cousin that is isolated, pull her out or go to her, because that is the healthiest thing that you can do, is to be somebody's friend and to have a friend. That is powerful. So as we come together for Ramadan and we are meeting new people who we only see in Ramadan or we only see on Eid, introduce yourself. Get a phone number. Find out where she lives and what she does. And make a point. I don't care if you got to put it on your refrigerator. These are all the people that I have to get in contact with, you know, after Ramadan. Even if it's once or twice. Get them to come out. If they can't come and say, hey, want to go for a cup of coffee? Maybe maybe she doesn't like coming to the masjid for whatever reason. People have had bad experiences, they'll judge because they don't really that, whatever her reason is. It's not a reason not to be afraid. So, inshallah, I hope that you have benefited from something that I said that you can take back and you can apply to your life and you can share with other people. That's super, super important. Got 5 minutes? Yep. Questions? Any questions? We got 5 minutes.
We're gonna,
Where can I find the video? Oh, sorry.
we're gonna break for, when, Sister McGurk is done and when the Q&A is done. We'll be breaking for, lunch and salat, and then we'll come back together in this room to hear our last speaker, Sister Sharita. So if you have any questions now for either Sister Selma or Sister Mubaraka, now would be a good time, to ask while it's still fresh in your mind.
I have a question.
This sister had her hand up first. Yes.
Okay.
What's the best way that we can keep ourselves hydrated for Ramadan?
Best way to do it. I knew Ramadan questions was coming. Best way for you to keep yourself hydrated in Ramadan is to start now remembering to drink water. So in general, most people don't drink enough water. So let me say this: 8-ounce glasses of water has absolutely no research behind it. What people should do, which has research and common sense, scientific sense to it, is whatever you weigh, so get your weight number in your mind, cut that number in half. That's how many ounces of water you should be drinking every day for your body. It is very individual to your body, just like food. So a person that's 120 pounds is not going to eat the same amount of calories as somebody that's 320 pounds. So what would make us think that they need to drink the same amount of water? A 320-pound person physically has more mass to move. They physically have more physical body than a person that is 120 pounds. So they need more food to maintain that. Not saying that you should, but you might. Than somebody who's 120 pounds. So there's a couple of tips that I would say real quick. One, start now, trying to get your water up, and start doing it in a way where you are doing it towards the evening time and in the night, because we have to get kind of like the habit of not drinking during the day. And the other tip about how do you drink water, and this is going to be hard in Ramadan, but we can try, and not have to pee all the time. That's the most important question. The body actually only has the physical capacity to absorb 8 to 10 ounces of water every 20 minutes. So the reason why you have to go to the bathroom when you drink a big 32-ounce cup is because your body is only using 10 ounces of it for your muscles, for your digestive system, and it has to discard of the rest of it because it can't absorb it. Physically does not have the capacity to do it that quickly. So if you have small amount of drink, 10 ounces, 15 at the most, every 20 minutes or so, or every half an hour, then you will actually use the water more efficiently. Not that you won't have to go to the bathroom, but you'll have to go to the bathroom less than if you tried to drink a whole bunch at one time.
Where can we find the video online,
Inshallah, we will find my videographer. What is your name?
Aska.
Haska?
Aska.
Haska. Aska. So, produced and recorded by Aska. Inshallah, you'll find it in a couple of places. So, a couple of places that you can get in touch with me, where you will probably find videos, and parts of the video is my Facebook fan page. I am a Facebookaholic, so you can always get in touch with me on Facebook. Sometimes when I don't answer my phone, my kids message me on Facebook. Mommy, I'm trying to call you. Fit Muslimah is the fan page. We have Instagram at Fit Muslimah. I have a website, fitmuslimah.com. So if you look up any of those things, and my YouTube channel is actually under my business name, Balance Fitness, as one word. And you will be able to find inshallah, the video and other resources too, if you're interested in other resources.
Everything that I've heard today is really important. I've been paying strict attention. I have a friend who when she is overwhelmed with things, she goes into what she calls underground. So even though family members have been trying to reach out to her for months, she finally answered the other day and said, I'm going through some things, and you know me, I go underground. And that's what she does. She just escapes from everybody and everything. I need to respond to her email, but I haven't been for the past couple of days because I want to respond with something that's going to snap her out of that. Is there anything that you all know that I can give her that will help her? I mean, that, the friendship and, and that is
I'm going to
good.
defer this to Sister Selma.
Okay.
So, I think one of the hardest things is to see somebody that we love suffering or in a bad place, and we don't know how to help them.
Right.
The truth is, there's nothing that we can do to snap somebody else out of something. But what we can do is let people know we're there. Like, I'm here if you need me. I could join you underground. Like, and what that means would be, maybe you would just sit next to her and not even talk. Like, just be in her presence. Because there's a lot of research that shows that just being around people, it's called herding, like herding cows or something.
Right.
It's like just having people around you is helpful and decreases our stress level. But a lot of times people don't feel like they have the energy to talk or engage. So you could ask her, could I just come and sit with you? Would that be okay? And if you felt like talking, I'm here if you want to talk. So it's just the invitation. When she's not in a bad place, maybe you could brainstorm with her some things that she really wishes for, but in that state can't ask for. So maybe a meal, or maybe just take her out for a ride in the car, but kind of brainstorm so then when she's in that place, in that bad place, you could remind her that, okay, here I am, I'm here to take you out for a drive. You don't have to talk, Sometimes really that's what it is, people just don't have the energy. So you come up with a list of things when she's in a good place that you now have permission to implement when she's in that bad state and it's not answering her phone or whatever. Maybe she gives you permission to just come knock on her door. Whatever it is. Does that help?
Yeah.
We just have to be okay with our feeling of helplessness.
Right.
And if you can't even connect with a person, what we can always do is make a lot for that person.
Yes.
And that can help us not to feel so helpless.
Yes. Thank you.
I was wondering, how do you get the dark circles from under your eyes?
Go to sleep.
Get enough sleep?
How to get dark circles running out besides sleeping and reducing your stress. I have heard that cucumbers work. I have heard that you don't want to put lemon juice directly underneath your eye, but mix it with some water to decrease the acidity of it. That lemon juice is actually a skin bleach. So dark circles, acne spots, those kind of things, it helps. One more question. Anybody else? One last question.
No, but I want to add something to the lemon juice thing. Don't use it when it's not diluted enough and then go into sunlight, because there have been reports that strong lemon juice in sunlight has been known to cause burns on the skin.
Also, can I just say something, just like general health, is like if you have dark circles under your eyes, make sure you're not anemic. Like, go to a doctor, make sure you're not anemic, you have allergies. There can be lots of reasons for dark circles. So you always want to make sure there's no root cause before you try to treat it, like cosmetically. But don't avoid sleeping. You want to go around that, but you gotta sleep.
Sleep is super, super important. I'll just mention this real quick, and then I think that we're gonna break. Sleep, if you are looking to decrease your stress or lose weight, the number one thing that you can do is get enough sleep. When you don't get enough sleep, you literally, the very next day, the hormones in your body that cause you to crave food, that tells your brain, okay, I'm not hungry, that hormone actually decreases and you start feeling more hungry. The hormone, this is not like something over a certain period of days. Literally, you go one night, the next day you're eating more because your brain is literally telling your body that you are still hungry, even though you have enough calories. Super important. The other thing that a lack of sleep does is it decreases your willpower. That's one thing that it does. And willpower is how you exert self-control. In this decrease of willpower, you literally decrease the glucose in your blood. So there's another book, obviously I like to read, but it's called Willpower, the Last Greatest Human Strength. And they've actually connected willpower to be a physical thing. So they did a study with college students and they had them to literally just sit up without slouching for an extended period of time. That requires willpower. I have to tell you later, that's the thing.
Yvonne just went on.
It's just a phone, I think. Oh, it's just a phone, okay. Oh, okay. So what they found is that when they took blood, that literally exerting willpower decreases your glucose level in your blood. And so when you're under a lot of stress and you're craving sweets, it is actually a very physical response. So now you gotta get somebody to rub you because, you know, that is that sweet, right? It is actually literally a physical response. You decrease your glucose level. So if you have a stressful job, you're dealing with a coworker that you just want to smack and you can't, when you come home and you're eating cookies, it is because you are such a great person with your willpower. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.